Welcome to What's Trending, your go-to podcast for staying informed about what's trending in the ever-evolving landscape of Westchester and beyond. We are your hosts, Amanda DePalma, Senior Vice President of Events and Development, and Dr. Marsha Gordon, President and CEO of the Business Council of Westchester.
On today's episode, we're excited to welcome David Seligman, Executive Vice President, Chief Integration Officer, and Market President at Northwell Health. In his role, David oversees operational performance and growth strategy across the Hudson Valley and Connecticut, including a vast network of hospitals and ambulatory locations. With an extensive background in healthcare leadership, operations, and system integration, David brings a unique perspective on how large health systems evolve, expand, and deliver care in today's rapidly changing environment. Today, we'll be discussing the evolution of Northwell Health in Westchester and beyond, major healthcare trends shaping the industry, and the opportunities and challenges that come with large-scale mergers, especially the very exciting recent integration with Nuvance Health. We're thrilled to have David here today to share his insights on the future of healthcare and what it means for patients and communities across the region.
What's Trending is sponsored by Webster Bank. Thank you for your support of the BCW Podcast Network.
Webster Moments, turning defining moments into success stories.
Retrofit Vintage Guitars repairs, restores vintage and antique guitars and brings them to market. In order to grow the business, we needed to expand our inventory. I didn't know the first thing about refinancing commercial property. Since we were introduced to Webster, this business has expanded 6 times over. This is serious business banking, and that's really what I needed. Webster is my trusted advisor. There is no other bank I would ever bank with again.
Webster Bank, powering pivotal moments into positive momentum. Learn more at websterbank.com. Webster Bank, N.A. member FDIC, equal housing lender. Webster, Webster Bank, Webster Investments, the Webster Bank logo, and the W symbol are trademarks of Webster Financial Corporation and registered in the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. Copyright 2026 Webster Financial Corporation, all rights reserved.
So David, welcome to What's Trending. To start, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your role at Northwell Health?
Sure, I'm happy to, and thank you for having me. It's a lot of fun to be here today. I've been with Northwell for a bunch of years now. I actually came into Northwell many years back through the integration of Lenox Hill Hospital in the city, where I spent the early years of my career. And so to be back involved in integration work, it's sort of a full circle moment for me. I've been with the health system for about 18 years now in a number of different capacities. But as you said earlier, my current role, I sort of have 2 components to what I do day to day. I lead our integration efforts around large scale integration into the network. Today, we're 28 hospitals, about 1,100 practice locations, and most of that happened over the years through M&A activity. And so integration is something we do a lot of.
I think you're the largest employer in New York State.
The largest private employer in New York State, yeah, about 106,000 team members.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it's
when we had Michael Dowling speak at our annual dinner.
I was there.
You were there,
and
yes, I almost fell off my chair when he said that. But that's really says everything about the Northwell Health system.
Yeah, and so much of our identity and our culture is grounded in Michael himself. And when he first came to the network, it was 2 hospitals growing into 3. And you look at what the last 30 years has brought. It's what he has done has been pretty remarkable.
Yeah, that's great leadership.
Absolutely.
And you're a great leader.
I appreciate that.
You mentioned, having worked for the organization for now coming up on almost 2 decades, you've really had a front row seat to the organization's growth. Can you describe the evolution of Northwell Health in Westchester, and what does that footprint look like today?
Yeah, so it's funny when you think about Westchester for the health system. I mean, first off, I'm a Westchester resident. My family is in Westchester, and so I'm certainly passionate about our work in the community. We all see Westchester Northwell docks. We use Northwell Westchester facilities, and so it's personal for us, certainly, and friends and family. The story of Northwell and Westchester is still pretty new. We're about 11 years in. Many people know the history here, where there was a network of 4 hospitals in Westchester that were part of a group called Stellaris that split up back in 2014 or so, and that was really before the larger health systems had developed more of a presence up into Westchester. When those 4 hospitals split up, 2 of them joined us, Northern Westchester and Phelps. One of them joined the New York Presbyterian system, and one of them joined the Montefiore system. And so for us, It's just about 11 and a half years now since we've been up here. That really started our work about a year and a half after we had the hospitals join the network. We aligned with one of the 3 larger medical groups in the area, Westchester Health Associates, and it's been a story of growth since. Trying to expand services, introduce new services in the community, but it's been a fun journey for us.
I think I read something just the other day about Phelps expanding in terms of reaching older patients and geriatric care.
Yep.
And I know there's a lot happening in terms of, on the other end of the spectrum, the maternity, and there's just so much happening throughout. And, we have a wide audience, so we're also interested in hearing about the entire Hudson Valley and what that means also. So from your perspective, what are 1 or 2 major global or local healthcare trends that you see shaping the way healthcare continues to evolve?
Yeah, I think some of them are just the continued acceleration of things we've seen for the last 10 years as it relates to, more and more care happening outside of the hospital, out into the community. And I think, for us, we were fairly forward thinking over the last 15 years or so, building that network of 1,100 community-based practices, really bringing care into the appropriate setting and as close to the patient as possible. And that work isn't done. We certainly have a lot of work still to do as we expand our services into Connecticut and the Hudson Valley. But I think that will continue. I think 2 things that are going to be relevant broadly, but certainly relevant in Westchester as well, is just the continued aging of the community, of the population. The stats around baby boomers, aging out of the workforce, et cetera, the care needs that will drive in healthcare, both hospital-based and ambulatory-based, is something that we're thinking quite a bit about, making sure that we're prepared ultimately to best support those needs. But the other angle of that we also spend a lot of time focused on at the moment is, amongst that aging population, is also a component of the healthcare workforce. And so how are we thinking about bringing new talent into the organization, about pipelining programs, aligning with educational institutions, so that ultimately we can be proactive in avoiding challenges as it relates to workforce over time. The second one I'd say, which I think is becoming more and more relevant, is just the affordability crisis that we're experiencing in healthcare at the moment, the burden on families, on employers. And so I think at Northwell, we're also trying to challenge ourselves in a number of ways. And how are we part of the solution there, not part of the problem? There's some creative things that we've been working on. But I think we all can appreciate that the rate increases associated with healthcare, which are driven by a whole multitude of factors, are becoming more and more of a burden.
Yes, we're hearing that a lot from our members, from across the board, from larger businesses to nonprofits to smaller businesses. We're all employers
100%,
that want to provide excellent healthcare coverage for our employees, and it's an issue. It's a cost and it's an issue.
And we're seeing more and more transparency on healthcare pricing these days. Is it perfect today? No, but it's better than it was 5 or 10 years ago. And I think that forces accountability onto the organizations to make sure that we're being mindful of the cost of outcomes and the quality of outcomes.
Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly.
All of these elements that you were just talking about really sort of set the stage for expansion. Mm-hmm. Looking ahead, what are 1 or 2 expansion plans that you're particularly excited to share for the market?
A couple of things. I'll start in Westchester. Marsha, you referenced earlier some of our work really on both ends of the age spectrum. Phelps, we cut a ribbon on a brand new maternity unit there probably about a year and a half ago now.
Beautiful.
And we're a couple of weeks away now from breaking ground on a complete revamp of the maternity program at Northern Westchester as well.
Very exciting.
And so, Northern Westchester is a wonderful facility. It's a gem. It was the first hospital in the state of New York to have full private rooms many, many years ago, before that was a trendy thing to do.
Yep.
We had both of our kids at Northern Westchester, but I will tell you, the unit there is staffed by an incredible group of caregivers, but in a facility that was built in the 1970s, and it's time for a modernization of the environment there. And so we're certainly excited to see that kick off. Another one over on the Phelps campus. Similarly, we're getting close to breaking ground now on an $8 or $9 million project around the digestive health center. So this is bringing together caregivers in GI and including the subspecialties, IBD, motility, et cetera, with colorectal surgeons, bariatric surgeons, medical weight loss providers, ultimately to be able to provide that full spectrum of comprehensive care with a unified team under one roof. it'll be sort of the first of its kind up in Westchester to allow the caregivers to collaborate in that type of an environment. And so excited about those projects amongst continued ambulatory expansions, up at Chappaqua Crossings, along 287, et cetera, et cetera. And then as I start to think about Nuvance, where, I still say Nuvance, but we're just this month kicking off the rebranding effort. So fully aligning around the Northwell brand. There's actually signs today going up at Norwalk Hospital.
That is really exciting.
Yeah, I think it makes it more real, but I think we also have a responsibility to help the community appreciate it's not just a matter of changing signs. What does the brand mean? Why does it matter that a Nuvance sign is flipping out to a Northwell sign? Why should I care? And so we're kicking off at the end of this month a pretty broad advertising campaign in that service area also, just to help them understand who we are, what we're about, and what we hope to achieve for them in the community. And there's a lot of, there's capital. As part of that deal, we made a $1 billion capital commitment to the Nuvance network over the next 5 years. And so
that's a significant commitment.
It's a significant commitment. And we always joke about it because the notion that we're going to spend $1 billion and then stop spending, that's just not how we function. We always want to strengthen programs. And so, I say all the time, it's not about the billion, it's about the first billion. But obviously, it's a major financial commitment ultimately to the community. But there's a number of projects. Probably the most relevant of them would be the planned move for the Nuvance network to come onto Epic with the rest of the Northwell network as our EMR.
That's great.
Yeah.
Big deal. We're a little late to this party, but
yes.
We're excited to be there. And then we're also in late stages of the design work around a new bed tower on the Norwalk campus, project that's been discussed for a number of years now, longer than we've been around. But I think we're finally coming to resolution on what the right scope and set of services is to support that project. And so excited to see those come to life.
It's very exciting. And, you are really at the forefront of changing the economy and the identity of this region. And I'll say the Hudson Valley and Connecticut, we're all one large region, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And it used to be that if you had something wrong with you, you found a doctor in the city.
Yep.
And now the doctors are the same doctors from your wonderful system are here.
Absolutely.
And if they're not physically here, they have access to the doctors and other practitioners and teams and researchers. I know you're also very big in research in this area and in the city, so that physically we can all get healthcare, that same healthcare here.
Yeah, I mean, I like to say,
really exciting.
The thing I want most to focus on for Northwell in this market is exactly what you're hitting on, which is I remember the times where the message to Westchester residents was you have to make a choice between quality and convenience, right? You can stay in your community, but you're not going to have access to the type of providers who maybe work in more urban areas like the city, like Manhattan. Or, frankly, you can go and access those providers, but you have to deal with the disruption of travel and parking and traffic and all that.
Yes, it's not easy.
What we always say at Northwell is our journey is to try to be an important cog in allowing patients to not feel like they have to make that choice where they're sacrificing, where they can access that caliber of care in their own community. And I think that's a big part of what we're about at Northwell. We'll see that with the Nuvance network. We're not a hub and spoke model. Our attitude has always been, if we can provide care safely in the community, then that's the right place for us to do it. And so financially speaking, that's not always to me, when we started doing neuroendovascular services at Phelps and interventional cardiology and electrophysiology services at Northern Westchester, those are services that patients previously in our network would have gone to Lenox Hill for. And did the Lenox Hill program suffer a little bit as a result of us doing that? Yes, but it was the right thing to do. And so to see those programs come online and to be able to see patients access that kind of service here in Westchester is really exciting for all of us.
Well, I'm going to go outside a little bit of the Westchester, Connecticut area, but I'll tell you one thing you do in Long Island that I love. Yeah. So I go to Fire Island every summer. And as I'm doing my walks, as I do around those wooden sidewalks in Fire Island, you've got suntan lotion stations.
We also have medical clinics
and
out
you have
there.
medical
Yeah,
clinics
yeah,
out
yeah,
there.
yeah.
Yes, well, I pass them in Saltaire and Fair Harbor, and we love that you're there. And I always take advantage because I always need another covering, as I'm walking in the sun in the summer there. But I think I say that with great happiness, but it also really couldn't show any better, I think, of how you are in the community, caring for the community in really granular ways, like supplying suntan
Something
lotion
as simple
in the
as that,
summer
just
community.
having access to it.
Yeah, I think it's a mindset shift for us in healthcare. Also, just this notion of, for a long time, we were essentially in the business of managing patients' illness. When they got sick, we were there to support those needs, and I think we'll always be there to do that. But it's a small but really relevant example of a way in which we have a responsibility to also focus on wellness. How can we avoid a patient developing skin cancer in the first place, right? That should be we're a nonprofit organization. Our mission is the wellness of the community at the end of the day. And so, that's a good example. And there's a million of them, of little ways in which we're trying to be more proactive at going upstream and saying, what role can we take in avoiding, that acute hospital admission?
Very, very, very important. So let's continue to focus on Northwell's merger with Nuvance Health. What were the primary drivers behind that decision?
Yeah, I think we're always a growth-oriented organization. I mean, we back in the mid '90s, we're fairly we were early leaders in seeing value and having hospitals come together in a formal network, and so. Leading up to 2020, ultimately, when that deal closed in May of 2025, we were a 21 hospital network. We had sort of come together one hospital at a time. The closest example, in fact, I could give of taking on more than one hospital at a time was when Phelps and Northern Westchester came in. Yeah. Two separate hospitals with two separate structures, but they came in at the same time. This one was certainly different for us to take in 7 hospitals with a corporate structure. There's opportunities and challenges that come with that, but for us, I think our mindset, you can never control the timing of opportunities. Michael Dowling always used to say, opportunities don't go away. You take them or someone else takes them. And I think we try to think that way when these opportunities come along. You can't always control perfect timing, not perfect timing. But what we always come back to is, first and foremost, aligned mission and culture. We will not come together with an organization if we don't think that there's cultural alignment in the way we prioritize what's important in the community. And we felt that with Nuvance from the start. I think we built trust over a number of years, getting to know each other better, appreciating sort of the fabric of each community, each organization. And so I think from the start, we always knew that there was cultural alignment between us. I think for the Nuvance network, which frankly is a fairly new moniker anyway, the Nuvance just came together in 2019, which was the combination of a 4-hospital system called HealthQuest, primarily in the Hudson Valley with 1 hospital in Connecticut, and Western Connecticut Health Network, which was 3 hospitals, really in southwestern Connecticut. Those 2 systems came together in 2019 with these visions and aspirations around creating a unified integrated health system. And 6 months later, COVID hit, and I think it was really difficult for them to ever achieve some of the early goals of that merger, just based on priorities that obviously circumvented. So, COVID really derailed a lot of the progress up there. They came out of COVID and really struggled with some of the recovery. And I think some of that financial hardship led them and their board down a path of exploring a bigger, broader partnership. And so, again, it all started with cultural alignment, commitment to, high quality care. But I would also say, you see a lot of merger and acquisition activity in healthcare these days, spanning across very disparate markets. Systems coming together in Illinois, North Carolina, things like that.
That's incredible.
To have an opportunity to work with a system that works in contiguous geography to where we are, but not overlapping geography where you'd have potential antitrust concerns. We just saw it as a unique opportunity to continue to expand in what we now define as a broader core market.
And just so we know, so in the Hudson Valley. There's Phelps, and there's Northern Westchester.
Yep.
And where else?
So as you go north, Phelps and Northern Westchester is our 2 acute sites in Westchester, although I will also say we have about 70 practice locations in Westchester where most of the care actually happens.
Absolutely.
As you go north, so Putnam Hospital, which is the only hospital in Putnam County, Vassar Brothers, which is a major tertiary academic center up in Poughkeepsie.
I had my child at Vassar.
Northwell. Place looks a little bit different now. They opened the new bed tower back in 2020. It's a beautiful facility.
Beautiful.
And then further north up into Rhinebeck. Rhinebeck is Northern Dutchess Hospital, which is just a wonderful community hospital.
It is a wonderful hospital.
Yeah, tremendous culture there.
Yes.
And so, we're all putting more miles on the car, but it's been fun to see some new places. That's
great.
for sure. Yeah.
David, you mentioned both challenges and opportunities that come with mergers like this. Can you just expand a little bit on maybe some of the biggest challenges a health system faces when going through an integration, and what are some of the, the real opportunities there?
Yeah, I think despite common cultures, most of the early challenges are cultural in nature, in that especially in this particular deal where you have two organizations that have a corporate structure and a medical leadership structure. Right now, all of a sudden, you have two people in the organization who hold the chief financial officer title, and you have two people who are the chairs of surgery, and it goes all up and down in that regard. And so, I would say if you look at mergers that have failed miserably, more often than not, it's because they were incapable of figuring out how to mesh all of that together. Some of that's around setting expectations, building relationships, building trust. I will tell you, before we, when we ultimately, one thing I'll say, not to tangent, but that was unique about this deal is because we had two state approvals to go through and ultimately a federal approval based on the size of the deal. The regulatory approval window was a bit longer than some of the other deals we've done. And some people sit there and say, that must have been challenging and frustrating. In some ways, it was a tremendous opportunity for us because while there's a lot of things you legally and regulatorily can't do until you reach the closing date, you can go through a fairly comprehensive integration planning process. So there's a lot of information strategically, financially that you can't share with each other, but you can talk about mutual aspirations post-closing. For us, most importantly, we really use that as a window around relationship building. We did a lot of social events, a lot of dinners, a lot of events bringing the teams together, a lot of introductions of...
We're all about relationship building at the Business Council of Westchester.
Well, and as you know as well as anybody, ultimately it enabled our success so that when we closed on May 1st of 2025, in a normal deal for us, I think about a single hospital deal, you have this flurry of activity during a due diligence process where people are meeting and sharing information. And then you sort of go quiet for a few months while you go through the regulatory process. And there's a limited number of people who are involved in that diligence window. And then the deal closes and people are shaking hands and meeting each other for the first time. This deal presented a unique opportunity to really establish some relationship, trust prior to closing, which I think has enabled our success in a meaningful way too. And so, I come back to, from a challenges perspective, it's really how do you bring the identity and the structure of two organizations together. On the opportunity side, it's just a broader opportunity to care for a service area population of 13 million people. Yeah.
So before we wrap up, any really quick, different exciting things we should look at?
I get excited by everything. I think for us... and
relationship with the colleges, that's great too.
We're focused there, but I will tell you also, I think trying to bring things into the community to the point before that you used to have to leave the community for... I don't want to tease things we're working on, but I think what we're trying to focus on right now is also opportunities to expand some of the things we've done in other parts of our network to bring trials and novel therapies into communities where they may not be accessible today. We'll have more announcements about that in the coming months.
And we will have you back to announce those. So thank you. Thank you so much.
I'm going to be looking for sunscreen stations on the Riverwalk down by the,
make it work,
by the Hudson.
Yeah,
David, thank you so much for joining us today on What's Trending. Your insights into healthcare growth, integration, and the future of the industry were incredibly valuable. We appreciate you taking the time to share your expertise and for the important work you're doing to strengthen healthcare across our region.
And I will second that, David. It was great having you as our guest today. And we also want to thank our sponsor, Webster Bank, and to our listeners for tuning in. Be sure to rate, review, and subscribe.
Be sure to check out the BCW Podcast Network's expansive lineup of shows: Leadership Unleashed, What's Trending, Advocacy and Politics Unplugged, The Member Spotlight, and Nonprofit Voices of Impact. The Business Council of Westchester is the county's largest business membership organization focusing on economic development and advocacy. With over 1,100 members, it is our mission to work for the profitability of our members and the prosperity of the Westchester community. To learn more about the Business Council of Westchester, please go to thebcw.org.